Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production channel group YouTube, and welcome to, of course, another Wednesday review. Today I am reviewing the debut full-length album for French epic heavy metal band Herzel. And since the album title is in French, I will also be giving you the English translation for most of us here who live in the United States and also in Canada. So, the album here for the French title is Le Dernier Rempart, but in English translation, it translates to The Last Bastion. And it was released on March 15th through Gates of Hell Records. So, and of course, Gates of Hell Records released two great albums last year, and one of them made it into one of my top 10, that being Traveler's Termination Shock and Solicitor's Spectral Devastation. So there we go. Alright, Herzel. Again, these guys are from France, which is Quimper, Brittany, France. And they were formed back in 2013, and they did release their debut demo in 2015. And it does have a French title to it, since most, again, their stuff is at least written in French. But still, I'm not going through to name the title because I don't want to come off like a complete dumbass. So I'm just going to at least move on, because then finally here this year we have their debut full-length album. So without further ado, let's get into my thoughts on Le Dernier Rempart, French for The Last Bastion. Alright, let's get into my thoughts on this debut album. Okay, so before I really give any of my thoughts on this album, let's do a track listing rundown. We got about 6 songs here, and it all clocks in at 36 minutes and 5 seconds. And since most of these songs, pretty much every song, is at least in French, I'm going to at least name you, name the English translations, alright, for these songs, okay? But I will on your screen, you'll definitely see the original French titles for these songs. But I'll also, after that, I'll also throw up the English titles, at least, or at least the English translations for these songs, to better help to get a better understanding of what these songs are, and so on. So, let's definitely go through, since I'm going to be reading off the English translations, let's begin. So, track number 1, this track is pretty much French for Masters of the Ocean. The second track is, well, you kind of could get a good understanding, Le Flame, which is pretty much French for The Flame. 03, we all know what this is. This will be the title track, and it's a instrumental, actually. But, of course, Le Dernier Rempart, basically French for The Last Bastion, which I pretty much at least got that in around the beginning, because it's what the album title is. Number 4 is pretty much French for Cradle of Ash. Number 5, French for Sword of the Gods. And then finally, the last song is pretty much, well, French for The Final Fight. So there's your 6 songs there. Again, you got the French, at least, titles for these songs, and the English titles for these songs. So you get at least the best understanding of what these songs are just by their titles. So there you go. Where do I really begin? Again, this for a debut album, and me, since I have at least reviewed a few French albums on this channel. I know one of my really early videos was on the French metal stuff from the 1980s. That was like one of my really early videos when I started out. And of course, I did review last year a ADX album, or ADX, even though that's why it's at least typed, but it actually means ADX. That's what I reviewed their album from last year, and that's a great French speed metal album. But this album, when it comes to the realms of epic heavy metal, this album is pretty much epic heavy metal through and through. I mean, though I wouldn't really compare this much to at least Manila Road, even though you can make some comparisons, but I don't know if I would go as far as say they sound like Manila Road. I wouldn't completely draw any comparisons to, even at times, maybe Heavy Load, who kind of will get thrown in there for some reason, but I don't know if I can go that far, and I don't know if I would even compare them to Manowar. They do have an epic heavy metal sound in many ways, but I feel they have, it's more what the French would think of what epic heavy metal is if this had been released back in the mid 1980s. Because of musically, I can make some comparisons to me like bands like High Power or even Blasphemy. I think they were titled, they were named, and a few other of some of those bands. Maybe even there's one. Attented Rock, I believe they were called. I can't completely remember, but I think they were named that. And they were, I can make some comparisons. They definitely sound like a band that would have fit in right along with the bands on Devil's Records back in the day. They definitely have that sound, and it does still. It's just quality heavy metal though. Just from the beginnings, the openings track that kicks this album off, being again English for or French for Masters of the Ocean, to then, of course, upon my personal favorite song on the album being The Flame. This is also a really good track. Again, that is the English translation for the second song, which is, again, even though Le Flamme, it's The Flame here for its English translation. This is, again, one of my absolute favorite songs off this album. But there's almost every song on here is great. These guys definitely know how to write a quality song, know how to write a quality riff. I wouldn't completely say they are copycatters. I know some will then make some comparisons to maybe even Eternal Champion. And yes, if I were to make any comparisons to Eternal Champion, definitely on the strength of the last album from Eternal Champion, one from last year, which was a great album though. That's probably, to me, what really did, what hit it, or at least what clicked for me with Eternal Champion. And I definitely can throw this in that same category, but I think Herzel does something a little more differently compared to Eternal Champion. They definitely are more, I would say, they definitely tend to really go for something that's a little bit, well, what's probably the best word I probably can use for this, but a little out there in some cases. They're definitely seen to be more open-minded in some cases as well. They I guess, just they're more broad in terms of the way that they are able to craft, and that's definitely to what I'm referring to is at least would be the title track, which is the short instrumental here, which actually clocks in at 1 minute and 42 seconds, and some of the very last parts of the final track, which again is French for, let me go back, the final fight, brain fart. So the very last part, it's actually from who it is who does this instrument, which is a let me see if I can pronounce this guy's name correctly, but Ronan Lee Dizez, hope I pronounced his name correctly. He provides an instrument called the bombard, which when I looked up to see what it is, it's basically a trumpet, but it's called the bombard. And it does give off, it is a very trumpet-like sound. It does give that off, which really adds a very unique, almost exotic, but I would mostly also say Celtic vibe to some of these songs, which it actually fits with the theme of what they're going for with this album in terms of just battles and war and just history and so on. It works to its theme and to its advantage. It works. And it's interesting. It's different. I normally don't hear a lot of these kind of stuff on a metal record, but they're able to make it work. And it's for some reason I can't help but think of prog in some cases, especially even at times krautrock. And the one band that comes to mind is Parzival, the German band. I can't help but think of a band like that when I'm hearing instruments like this on, especially with its construction and execution. I can't help, but it just gives it a proggy feel for some reason. Even though this is epic heavy metal through and through, adding instruments like this and doing sort of ideas like this on an album somehow gives it a little bit of a slight progressive feel. I can't help but very artsy as well. I would say maybe arty, epic heavy metal, art metal, I don't know. But it's so different and unique that it actually gives the album a little bit of extra flavor, and it sets them apart from bands like Eternal Champion, Middle Road, and Manowar, and these kind of bands who get lumped into sort of the epic heavy metal genre. They definitely really separate themselves by adding instruments like this and doing sort of a little bit versatile and broadening the ideas of what to do with a metal album. They definitely set themselves apart with this. And I think it really adds a little bit of extra oomph to the album, and it just makes it different. So I'm really praising some of this. I mean, I can't really pick anything bad off this album. As far as, again, I can't really say anything else. This is just a great album. I think it's one that should be heard, okay? As far as favorite songs I was about to go into, for me, I would say the first two songs might be the strongest, especially what is titled Le Flamme, which is French for The Flame. Those are probably two of my absolute favorites, but I really gotta be honest. I'll probably just say the whole entire record is basically a highlight. There's just nothing bad here. I really enjoy this. So this is where I'm going to at least end my thoughts for this, because I can't really go any further. I've done everything I can to at least somewhat summon up this album in many ways, trying to explain what this album is, because this is a solid epic heavy metal album with plenty of different twists and turns that really make it that sound a little unique. In some cases, it definitely separates them from a lot of other retro heavy metal bands. They definitely have some ideas. They're definitely creative, and it's good. So there you go. There's my thoughts on Le Dernier Rempart, French for The Last Bastion. And what is my rating? It's a 9.15 out of 10. I know that might be a little bit below in terms of its rating, but that's probably due to how many times I might have listened to this, which is, it wasn't very much, but what I heard impressed me enough to where I wanted to bump it up to at least somewhere around a 9 out of 10, because of this is a freaking good record though. Again, that's I really can't pick out any really standout song, because in some cases I feel with this album, it's almost a standout in its entirety. Every song is almost a standout, even when it comes to its instrumental title track, with the sort of use of the bombard instrument, which is a trumpet. It's so interesting and different that I've heard with since I've been reviewing a lot of albums already so far this year. This just ends up, it becomes a little, it sticks out. I wouldn't say like a sore thumb, but it definitely sticks out at me as just unique, because of, again, I don't hear very many metal albums that pushes the boundaries of what you can do with such a record. So it is just cool, and it's why I bumped it up. And again, great riffs, a solid epic heavy metal album. And so if this does sound like an album you really want to check out, it does sound like that it's something that is up your alley. Again, I'm going to leave you to their Bandcamp page so you can check this album out and hopefully also support and buy this album, because I think it's definitely worthy of being added to any of your guys' collection. I definitely recommend the Dernier Rempart from Herzel. This is a great album, good debut album. It definitely gives you the good idea of what these guys are capable of and how they're able to stretch their musical chops, and as far as their creativity, where they're going to take it. And I think with ideas that is done on like the title track and the very last song, towards that end, with adding instruments like the bombard, you could tell that they're going to definitely stretch it even further and expand on that sort of concept. So really, they've got some chops to them, and so this is a great album that I recommend. I know I've gone on for too long, so this is where everything's going to end. So with that, I hope all of you enjoyed. This is for Thresh Shed. Sam out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.